On June 29th, 2025, firefighters climbed Canfield Mountain in Coeur Idaho, responding to what looked to be a brush fire. However, what they walked into was something no fire crew should ever have to face. What would happen next would leave 2 firefighters dead and a third in critical condition, along with the state of Idaho reeling for answers. It all started as dispatch lit up with reports. At 2 p.m. on June 29th, 2025, firefighters made contact and had a conversation with an individual who would later be identified as a perpetrator of this most heinous act, and then proceeded to go off and began battling what appeared to be a routine grass fire on a ridge called Canfield Mountain. But the smoke wasn't the real danger in this situation. What waited for them within the tree line was a gunman, and within minutes, 2 of those emergency responders would be dead, in particular firefighters. Dispatch got a call for a grass fire just after 1:20 p.m., stating that a grass fire had broken out on the forested slope of Canfield Mountain. As of this recording, the identity of the individual who made the original call is unknown, even though it is strongly suspected that the individual who started the fire and shot at the firefighters is the same individual who made the call. For those unfamiliar, this is a rather popular hiking area, as it's rather scenic, quiet, and peaceful. Not the sort of place you'd expect what appears to be a coordinated attack or an ambush. As 3 fire crews responded, one from the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, another the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue, and the third from the Northern Lakes Fire District. This was a combination of both seasoned professionals and volunteers who knew how to handle wildfires, but as they got to work they noticed something was strange. The smoke wasn't quite coming from a deep wildfire front, as it was just a brush fire, local and containable, almost as if it had been set alit on purpose. Then, without warning, these shots came. Multiple rounds started to echo off the trees. Firefighters scrambled for cover, realizing instantly that they were being targeted, not by accident.
Central BC 5, Central BC 5. BC 5 upstate. Some law enforcement right now, there's an active shooter zone. They're shot. BC 3's down, BC 1's down. Everybody's shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here. 551, 10 or 14 up here. Stop. Get out of the way. 10 or 14. Engine push 551. Do not come up here. 51 copies. Remaining staging.
As it would later be stated by Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris that they were actively taking sniper fire. 2 firefighters were hit and killed. The 2 firefighters who were killed were in particular one from Kootenai County Fire and the other from Northern Lakes Fire, and a third was critically wounded. Deputies arriving on scene also came under fire as well, and began to fire back. One officer said later that it felt like the shots were coming from every direction, as if it were a coordinated trap. By 3:30 p.m., Kootenai County was in full emergency mode. The sheriff's office had issued a shelter-in-place order for residents near Canfield. SWAT teams, along with federal agents from everything, including the FBI, along with U.S. Marshals, and a whole bevy of 3-letter organizations, quickly came on scene, bringing helicopters in order to respond to this forested ridge on the outskirts of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, whose very population is heavily made up of hikers and mountain bikers who could potentially also have been stuck in the scene taking shelter upon having heard the shots being fired. To this end, responders used the nearby Cherry Hill Park on Nettleton Gulch Road as a staging area. Authorities would also set up 27 individual containment points aside from this in order to prevent the perpetrator from escaping. And the Kootenai Emergency Management Office advised people on the mountain's trailhead to seek shelter rather than attempting to actively run around in an active shooter situation. This region is roughly 260 miles east of Seattle and sits near the Washington state line. As authorities began to pour into the area, they began to suspect the fire itself was deliberately set as bait in order to lure first responders into a trap and pin them in a kill zone. As to how exactly this went down, the shooter reportedly used a shotgun with rifled slugs, and thanks to small bits of shrapnel that were found around the area, it is suspected that he might have had another weapon. But due to the fire consuming much of the area, it is currently unknown if he did. But what we can guaranteeably state is that he indeed used a shotgun with what appears to be 1-ounce rifled slugs, firing rapid sniper-like shots at the firefighting crews. Sheriff Norris said the gunman had hidden amongst the brush and opened fire upon the crews. His ability and propensity to hide within trees and underbrush may be in part linked to him having grown up in an arborist family, as authorities have stated. This would also make it easy to understand why it is believed that he did in fact shoot first responders from the heights of a tree, forcing firefighters and deputies to take cover. Deputies responded with their own gunfire. Norris said he had instructed them to fire back at the sniper, hoping someone would get a clear shot to neutralize the threat. Smoke and flames from the brush fire continued to complicate the response as the fire intensified during the shootout. Norris warned that the fire itself had remained active and they could not deal with it as the shooting was still in progress. Federal agents were tasked with assisting on the scene with tactical and technical support, which included each agency deploying their own drones, each capable of similar yet uniquely distinct jobs, but he emphasized that it had remained active and dangerous. Hours later, officers would discover a male body not far from the original call site where the cell phone had been pinged. He was found with a firearm near his body. He was also found with a flint starter that is believed to have been what was used to start the fires. And his location was found via cell phone signal pinging. It is believed that this was the individual who aggressed upon the firefighters, and it is also believed that he was alone. And it is still unknown if his fatal wound was self-inflicted. Due to the fire having both reached the area where the perpetrator's body was found, and due to it also spreading to other areas, investigations into exactly what happened have been made significantly more difficult. Officials would effectively end the immediate firefight, and crews would shift to focusing on containing the fire and processing the scene, including a caravan to, as quickly as possible, move the bodies to be autopsied, as authorities also collected the body of the man they found dead with a firearm nearby for forensic analysis. As of now, 2 firefighters are dead from gunshot wounds and a third is wounded and hospitalized. No law enforcement officers or civilians have been reported killed or injured as of the date of this recording. Authorities have confirmed the suspect in the June 29th, 2025 ambush of firefighters as 20-year-old Wes Raleigh. His identification was made official on June 30th, 2025 by law enforcement, and as it stands now, Raleigh is believed to have intentionally have set the brush fire in order to lure the firefighters into the ambush. As of now, official sources via Sheriff Bob Norris have labeled the attack completely premeditated. Investigators have noted Raleigh had local ties to Bonner County. One source reported that he had lived in his truck at some point in the past 2 years in said area. It must also be noted that he, during his time in the area, had 5 interactions with the police in the past for trespassing and welfare checks, where the authorities stated that they had been called in by property owners due to that individual deciding to reside somewhere where he wasn't allowed to, and all issues were solved peaceably as he cooperated. However, no official information has been able to verify this beyond a reasonable doubt. There are unverified social media claims that he was born in Russia and that afterwards he lived in Florida, New York, and Arizona. However, now authorities have cleared things up and stated that he was born in California in 2005. And it is reported that he did in fact move around between particular states for a while. And it must be noted that as of now, authorities have not disclosed any prior criminal records, nor referenced any earlier altercations with authorities, be they state, local, or federal. However, there have been some unconfirmed social media posts and news commentaries that have speculated about potential rumors regarding past arrests. However, once again, these are unverified and merely speculation about rumors. In the latest press briefings, authorities have confirmed that the perpetrator did indeed use a shotgun, and due to other small bits of shrapnel having been potentially found, there are some suspicions that he might have had another weapon, along with confirming that Raleigh had worked in the tree services and aspired to be a firefighter at some point. It must also be noted that in order to prevent the shooter from getting back into what they were relatively sure at the time and now completely certain of was his vehicle, authorities that responded initially decided to push the car off a cliff. As of today, the area around the fire has been contained, as no structures were lost and the area is secure. But law enforcement is urging the public to remain cautious, as they do believe that scammers may attempt to take advantage of this tragedy, so no donations or memorial funds should be trusted until an official release is issued.